All right. We are getting into midterm review. It's that time. So, most of the material you guys have already turned in through notes. You've seen it on quizzes. It's not going to be much different from what I already have told you to focus on. And those latest modules like Gilman or Du Bois, I think even Max Weber, you weren't required to show your notes and there was no quiz. So um it was the like words I told you to focus on when I made the post in the module that we'll be going over, and they're on the midterm review sheet. Okay. So hopefully you guys have already done this and you're not watching this video to fill it out along the way. Okay. Sociology, scientific study of human relationships, organizations, institutions, aka science of the social. Now, a bit of my own definition. The keywords is going to be science, some kind of social organization, and you notice I went from human relationships to institutions, organizations. So in class or in lecture, I say small between two people. As small as the relationship between two people, as large as a continent with countries and cultures. So um, pretty broad range, but social implies at least two. Otherwise, it would be what? If it's an individual perception, psychology, or if we're talking about human culture, it's social, but focusing more on what humans produce. Culture is the focus of anthropology. Okay, social fact. External force influencing an individual against their will. Okay. Durkheim came up with this idea. Okay. Uh, Also, who invented sociology? Durkheim. You don't know what font this is. Okay. Pecking order. Again, external affecting individual. I talked about marriage, right? Even if you hate it or you love it, it's because of social pressure, among other things. Other issues are the same. It affects you against your will. It affects your internal world. It affects the way you behave, how you gauge success, how you gauge failure, right? Home ownership. Some people don't care. They already have a home. Some people, maybe they never will own one or think they won't. It kind of haunts you. It affects you against your will. Pecking order. Just think chickens pecking at each other. So if you've had chickens, that's how they maintain order, pecking. If you have little baby chicks, they might all start picking on one. You have like a red heat lamp, and the red lamp helps not the chicks not focus on like a piece of skin that doesn't have any feathers, or else they'll still peck. Um, they'll pick on deformed chickens. There usually will be one on the bottom of the totem pole, on the bottom of the hierarchy, the whipping dog, so to speak, scapegoat. Um, and the like hierarchy of hens, there's going to be, like alpha hens or the top hens. If the other hens eat before the ones at the top of the hierarchy, they're going to peck them. So it's social order maintained by a dominance hierarchy. What's a dominance hierarchy, right? Individuals who are aggressive, coercive, and intimidating. Prestige, individuals who possess a specialized skill or knowledge and have respect in the community. So most of the time, humans throughout history have used dominance hierarchy. But now, in modern times, in like corporations, other institutions, there's an attempt to use a prestige hierarchy, right? Sort of a meritocracy. If you do your work, you get your education, you're going to rise through that way. Okay. And what you need to know in dominance hierarchy, when there's group conflict between groups, people prefer a dominant leader. When there's conflict inside a group, people prefer a leader that operates on prestige. Major theories, structural functionalism. Think of a body like an animal, an organism. Society is a body with organs, biological parts, attempting to find harmony. Durkheim is categorized in this area incorrectly, but we still have to know this. That association. Conflict. Society is formed, functions by conflict between major forces. Noticing kind of like the definition is in, or the term is in the definition itself. Symbolic interactionism. We haven't even gotten into this. This is, something that's not covered often, but I want you to think of games, playing hide and seek, tag. Society is created by individual gestures, vocabularies, games. Think of social development, right? If you play Candyland with your 2-year-old or 3-year-old brother or sister and they lose, they're not developed enough to abide by the rules. They'll like flip the board over or try to cheat, right? Hide and go seek, you see kids hiding like in very obvious places, or they're counting and peeking through their fingers, right? But these games are sort of like symbols of different parts of society, how roles function and rules function. Okay, Mills, our first theorist. So again, sort of like the structure of the beginning is basic ideas about sociology, the definition of the word sociology and social fact. But I want to prove to you that the social world exists. So that's why I bring up pecking order and chickens. Usually I can convince people through animals first. And then from that kind of hierarchy of chickens, we go to hierarchy of people. And usually I bring up the example of a high school or a church. There's popular people, unpopular people. This is a very general way. There's other ways humans organize, but hierarchies are pretty important. It's not the only way, and dominance isn't the only way, but throughout history, I think people behave that way. Okay, Mills. Now, these two theorists, Mills and Berger, are American theorists, except for Berger. I don't know. He has an accent. I think he's not from the United States, but part of the American tradition. Mills is earlier than Berger, but these are both, I think, their ideas encapsulate what sociology is, have kind of like a bigger general theory. And yeah, that's why I chose these two first. So, sociological imagination, you'll encounter this probably in any or every sociology class. We read a chapter from it in my grad program. Undergrad classes, Mills is just a part of sociology. Usually people don't read beyond the first chapter though. Sociological imagination, history plus biography, history plus biography. And those expand. It's not just any history, it's social forces in history. And it's not just any biography, it's your personal biography. If you have the ability, the sociological imagination is like a pair of glasses, right? You don't have glasses on, you're in the trap. What does that mean? Mills says you feel like your life is out of your control. Think about it. COVID's happening, inflation's happening. Do you feel in control of your life? You feel trapped. And the next definition, cheerful robots, people who don't question things, people who just go along with the status quo of their group, right? If you're in like a more Republican family, and that's the status quo, everyone's going to kind of believe in that thing. And if you believe in a different thing that's different from the status quo, maybe you won't be treated the same. Similarly, in a household that's more liberal or democratic, that's the norm. That if you try to be conservative, you're going to be more of the outcast, right? It's the norms where you are. There's a status quo in the United States, but there's kind of like subcultures or subgroups of status quo, all kinds. And cheerful robots, like what's popular. So fully accepting the alienating forces of reason, becoming trapped and giving up your freedom. Okay. A little bleak, a little bit more bleak the way Mills says it. But it's true. People who are basic, people who do whatever's popular, they're kind of like robots. They behave mechanically and just base their beliefs on what's popular. Okay. And having the sociological imagination is like having glasses, putting them on, and being able to see past that, right? Oh, is it I'm having a hard time finding a job? If maybe I only believed in psychology and rugged individualism, I'd be like, it's my fault. I'm not working hard enough. But when there's a recession, inflation, COVID, war, all these forces are affecting your ability to get a job. It's a social problem. It's not an individual problem. Social forces, history, personal biography. Maybe you didn't have a father or a mother, or you're raised by most of your siblings were your sisters, females. This is all going to uh, affect the way that you interpret reality. Are you a firstborn, uh, second or middle child, baby? These are all going to factor in how you look at the world. Okay, the power elite. The last idea of Mills. He says, and he kind of, if you remember Marx, conflict theory in Marx, it's the bourgeoisie versus proletariat. The 1% versus 99% is the main conflict. There's more layers to that. But what Mills argues, the elite are made up of three: military, economic, and political elite. And this is like the top 1% elite of the elite, the generals and CEOs, right? Not low level people. And they go through the same really expensive boarding schools, the same Ivy League universities to where they network with each other and can help each other maintain these positions of power. Okay, Berger. Society is a human creation, a part of culture, but the most important part of culture. Culture cannot be spread unless there's people socializing. You're talking about a recipe that your grandma made you. You have somebody else teaching you about traditional clothing. Someone makes that clothes. You buy those clothes. You have to interact with humans to spread culture. You have to use the memory of groups of humans to remember that culture. So society is a special part of culture. So we have this process of the social construction of reality: externalization, objectivation, internalization. So I had the on my slides before the chopsticks, right? Externalization. First person who invents chopsticks. This is a good idea to eat food. Internalization. A bunch of people are using it and it's becoming norm. It's becoming popular. Uh, Objectivation. It's becoming like a trend. And then internalization is a kid or someone young sees that and then assumes that that's normal, right? And then it becomes reality. Objectivation. That's the point where it becomes popular, right? Groups of people are using it. And internalization, when you think it's real and normal. So external, object, internal. You can shorten it. That's the order: external, object, internal. Culture, made up of material and non-material creations. Material: lawnmowers, computers. Non-material: language, laws. The totality of man's products, creations, provides firm structures for human life that are lacking biologically. Sorcerer's apprentice. Man concocts institutions which come to confront him as powerfully controlling and even menacing constellations of the external world. Basically, a human creates something, that creation gets out of control, and it has to be stopped by some other means. If you guys watch Fantasia, this is what happened. Mickey, when he's following the sorcerer, he tries to take a shortcut. His job is to fill buckets of water and bring them from like a fountain to another place. And the spell gets out of control. And he has to have his boss, the sorcerer, sort of speak another spell and end that. Okay. And this is sort of like a metaphor for how we create in our society. People create religions, people create institutions, people create countries, right? It takes on a life of its own. Adam Smith, most important idea, division of labor. Complex job divided into little parts to make a simple job. We have an example of the pin maker. One person can make 20 pins a day, five people can make hundreds of pins. And the consequences, dexterity, think of like a factory or we're working at a fast food place. Dexterity, a person can do pretty much with a day or two of training, short training time, any entry level job. It saves time. Complex tasks turn into simple ones. Innovation, workers see problems and improve and repair machinery. This is Marx and other theorists critique this. Universal opulence. Everyone benefits from the division of labor. Common goods become more affordable. This is true in a certain sense. Um, Once a country uses like division of labor or capitalism, more people can afford more things like creature comforts. But if we compare that to feudalism, where everybody's like a poor farmer, anything's better than being a poor farmer. So more people have more things, but it's not a, you know, perfect situation. We still need things like healthcare or home ownership. It's not universal opulence, right? Truck barter and exchange, the special capacity of human beings based on reason. Truck, moving things around in trucks, bartering, negotiating, exchanging, trading. So it makes division of labor work, modern capitalism work, and people do this based on their ability to reason. Marx, historical materialism. History moves in stages. History moves according to a sequence. Who controls and who has the power in that time period is who controls the means of production. What does that mean? People who control the things that make things, right? The factories, agriculture, anything that a society uses. Who is in control is who control the means of production, right? Hegelian dialectic. Just think like a yin yang, opposite. Black and white teardrop or fish. Thesis versus antithesis equals synthesis. What does this mean? Process of two oppositions clashing and forming a new order where these two new oppositions emerge. So just think dialectic, opposite. Okay. It's sort of a philosophical tool to learn a method of approaching material, but just think for our test, it just means opposite, dialectic. Bourgeoisie, proletariat, rich versus poor, haves versus have-nots, 1% versus the 99%. Property business owners versus workers. Communism, a workers' utopia that has not existed yet. Marx's final stage of historical materialism. So China now, even though there's a CCP, I think it's Central Communist Party, it's the People's Republic. China's not communist. They're in the first stages of socialism. First stages of socialism. Capitalism, dictatorship of the proletariat. This isn't going to be on the test. Socialism, and there's different types. Then communism. Okay, communism hasn't existed yet, even though countries or people think it has, according to more of like a orthodox Marxism, it hasn't. Okay, alienation and estrangement. Just think of a factory worker. Nature, we are cut off from nature when we engage in work making artificial human constructions. So we're not hunter-gatherers, hunting, fishing, gathering herbs. We're making widgets, we're making TVs, we're making iPads, right? You can't find these in nature, but they're made of nature. And we could survive in a more rural area, but we don't anymore. Once we enter the modern economy and we're in an urban area, we're cut off from nature. We're in this sort of artificial world. We are alienated from ourself. We sell our time and it becomes an alien part of ourselves that we hate. Weekends are used to escape. You daydream during work. You do things to blow off steam from not liking your job. You put off traveling towards retirement. Species being our original creative human potential. I think that there's a lot of people who would have would like to have other jobs and they can't. And that's one thing in capitalism Marx warns us. Maybe we have like a future Einstein that's a janitor, or somebody else who's a great engineer and they're working in fast food. People's circumstances are affected and they can't live out their potential, right? It kills our creative ability. And alienation from our fellow man. Working makes us compete against our fellow humans. You go to interview, you don't think, wow, this guy or girl is my brother. You want the job. They're your competition. Emil Durkheim, my favorite theorist. Who invented sociology? Emil Durkheim. Sacred and profane dichotomy. Sacred, special, set aside. Profane, not special, earthly. Everyday actions, brushing your teeth, eating, pooping, sex, those are all profane. Sacred, special, religious, holy. This is sort of a dialectic, right? Opposites. Abnormal forms of the division of labor. We forgot to add organic and mechanical solidarity. So, mechanical solidarity. This would be like a tribal mindset. Tribal culture. Everybody believes the same thing. Hive mind. If you go against what the tribe says, punishment is severe. Organic solidarity. This is what happens during the division of labor. More individuality. Modern times. Okay. So you're more free. There's bad sides. Mechanical, everybody's a robot. Organic, you could be too individualistic and isolate yourself. Abnormal forms, anomic, more accurately translated as derangement, but every book translates this term as normlessness. Lack of meaning, chaos, the pandemic. Forced, doing a job you don't like. Disjointed, your labor is inefficient, pointless, management doesn't function. These are all labels of dysfunction created by Emil Durkheim to fix the division of labor. He believed that it was a more ideal way to organize human society, but there's problems and we have to correct them to make it more fair, more of a meritocracy. Max Weber, rationalization, science increasing, science up, technology, reason, rationality controlling our life, disenchantment, magic down. The world loses its sacred and magical qualities. So that formula, science up, rationalization, disenchantment, magic down, equals iron cage. The final trap, rationalization plus disenchantment. The plight, the condition of the modern man, according to Max Weber. In a world that isn't sacred, where God's left, and technology and science is almost worshipped, what agency, what power do humans have? We're in an iron cage. It's a cold world where we're not in control, where it isn't sacred, where we feel alone and isolated. Okay. 3 types of authority. Traditional. This is the way we've always done it. This is sort of like a tribal mindset. Charisma. Your followers give you power. Cult of personality. Legal rational. This is like a prestige hierarchy. Power based on credentials, experience, merit. Like schools, universities, government institutions. Three types of authority. And bureaucracy, according to Weber, optimal human organization based on legal rational authority. So it's the most efficient way for humans to organize themselves. And whether you like it or not, it's how a lot of political parties, government institutions, or religious organizations, they're organized in bureaucracies. So we're not going to go over stratification. Oh, is that it? No, we still have. Give me one sec. Let's see. Mm, mm. We have Du Bois and Gilman. Come on, computer. Okay. Well, we'll add to this. It's on you guys' sheet that I posted already. So let's see. Gilman. Yellow wallpaper. Whoops. Oh, it's motherhood. Domestic labor. Feminism. Okay. Yellow wallpaper. Fictional story about the condition of women. Remember, Gilman had postpartum depression, and in this fictional story, she tells the reader about her experience with this cure that was later found to be, debunked. They didn't use it anymore. She got locked into a room, was not able to see anybody, interact, write, read, complete isolation. And in the story, it takes place in a nursery. So a woman gets infantilized, uh, treated like a baby, and isn't allowed uh, to have any adult things, right? She's locked in a nursery. There's bars on the window, and she's treated like a baby. So, yellow wallpaper, motherhood. Motherhood, not a sacred duty, but we claim it is. So, Gilman says Americans think they honor mothers, but they don't. There's no training. You can't pay them for this duty, or else that would, debase it. Um, and we don't allow women to work. So we say it's sacred, but it isn't. It's contradictory. There's kind of like a dialectic in motherhood. Domestic labor. Women are expected to do this. Oops. Wage, no wage. Kitchen. Taking care of all the duties at home. There's no compensation, right? The mom, the wife isn't the husband's business partner, right? Feminism, first wave, mainly concerned with voting rights, voting, political rights. Mainly middle and upper class white women. Okay. Basic questions about Gilman, basic ideas. W.E.B. Du Bois, first African American sociologist, even though he had a PhD in history, went to Harvard, talented 10th, top elite group. the best schools, get best jobs, make most money, contribute to progressive causes. So, Du Bois, how do Black people, African Americans, solve their problem of race at the time when he was writing? So, Talented 10th is one of his early solutions. So, let's talk about race and sociology, social construction, right? You do your 23andMe, you're not going to say, oh, I'm 40% brown, oh, I'm, 20% white. It's going to be a country of origin, and even countries, borders, and cultures change over time. But race is a social construction. We still use it, and I introduced the idea, not introduce, but bring up the idea of racecraft, like witchcraft. It's like a circular logic, right? Magic is real. My cousin got affected by the evil eye and got sick. Therefore, magic is real. I'm just talking about an effect, not a cause, right? It's the same thing with any other like racist idea, right? Asians are good at math because they have the highest test scores. That's why Asians are good at math, right? It's just a cause and circular logic. It still affects our reality. People still judge you. And then we'll have our concept of the veil, right? A screen obstructing a person, the view of a person, right? It's them that sees through this veil, and other people who see the veil. Their view of them is obstructed, right? When you see me, Professor Luna, Mr. Luna, am I a person or am I a mustache guy with a bald head, right? Do you automatically have these preconceived notions? And especially for minorities, right? People think they know a person's personality or social situation based on the kind of prejudiced ideas. It's there. It's like they're wearing a veil on their face. And also the individual double consciousness, right? Being Black and being, yeah, and American and African American, okay? Knowing the history of slavery, our Constitution having laws restricting the natural rights of minorities, and sorry, my cat's on here, and being an African American, being a Mexican American, right? Knowing that former presidents have, talked trash about people who are Mexican or think that everybody from Mexico wants to come here, uh, labeling Mexicans as somehow lesser than, right? People who will look at someone who's brown skin automatically have these ideas about them. And we have these ideas about ourselves. I'm half Mexican, but there's totally different types of thinking, first generation, second generation, right? Depending on what part of Mexico your family's from, depending on how dark your skin is, right? Okay, if any of this is too fast, you can pause the video and just write down my definitions. Go over this, go over the lectures. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to make the midterm towards the end of this week. Maybe like you can take it a little early if you want, but the deadline's going to be next Sunday. Okay? So go over this video. Good luck. I'm not trying to trick you. Need any help, let me know. Bye-bye.